64 episodes, 2 seasons, one black and white mansion where a seance passed for family dinner, and a disembodied hand did the dusting. That was the Addams family. But behind that mansion's gates, 6 of the 8 actors who lived there are gone, taken by cancer, by open-heart surgery, by strokes nobody saw coming. It's 2026 now, and only one Addams is left to tell it. War stories, hidden diagnoses, a tragedy no one talked about, and the last man standing. This is the reunion the cameras never filmed. You remember the glide of that black dress before you ever learn her name? That was Carolyn Jones. In 1964, she stepped into Morticia Addams at 34 years old. Before Morticia, she was already a serious name in Hollywood. She'd been nominated for an Oscar for The Bachelor Party. She'd once shared a screen with Elvis Presley in King Creole. Then, in 1981, while starring on the soap opera Capital, she got a diagnosis nobody expected: colon cancer. She told her castmates she had ulcers instead. She kept working through treatment. The cancer went quiet, then came back the next year. That September, knowing time was short, she married her boyfriend of 5 years anyway. She played her final scenes from a wheelchair, hiding the cancer spreading through her body. She once told her sister she wanted her epitaph to read, "She gave joy to the world. The woman who taught America to stay calm, facing death, never let anyone see her own fear." 6'9", a butler built to stay silent. One line he improvised on the spot that the whole world would remember instead. That was Ted Cassidy, 32 years old, when he first walked onto the set as Lurch in 1964. Off camera, he was nothing like the character. He'd worked as a radio DJ in Dallas, reporting live from the studio the day President Kennedy was shot. He played organ in a diner to entertain lunch customers. He even recorded his own novelty song, The Lurch, and started a dance craze with it. In 1979, surgeons opened his chest to remove a tumor near his heart. The operation succeeded. He went home to recover. Then, within days, something went wrong. He was readmitted to the same hospital. He never came back out. Ted Cassidy was 46. The man behind television's most famous silent servant spent his career being anything but quiet, right up until the moment he no longer had a choice. March 5th, 1944, a jungle clearing in Burma, 100 miles behind Japanese lines. A military glider crash lands at night, and the pilot ends up crushed at the bottom of a pile of his own men. That pilot was Jackie Coogan, the same boy who once starred alongside Charlie Chaplin in The Kid. Japanese soldiers moved through the wreckage. They bayoneted every man in that pile. Every man except him. He lay there, motionless, surrounded by the dead and dying, until he could finally crawl out. His Addams Family co-star John Astin heard the story firsthand, years later. He said Coogan carried nightmares from that night for the rest of his life. Some nights he'd wake up shaking. All he needed was someone to talk to, and he'd settle back down. This wasn't Coogan's first brush with loss. As a child star, he'd earned millions, only to learn at 21 that his own mother had spent nearly all of it. He sued her. He won barely a fraction back. California passed a new law because of him, one that still protects child actors today. By the time he put on Uncle Fester's bald cap, Jackie Coogan had already survived more than most people could imagine. He just never let the cameras see it. The woman waving that broomstick as Grandmama had a sister who once sang duets with Nelson Eddy on the silver screen. Her name was Blossom Rock, and her younger sister was Golden Age legend Jeanette MacDonald. The two performed together in vaudeville as children in Philadelphia. Blossom was the one who helped launch Jeanette's career in the first place. Decades later, Blossom found her own fame playing Grandmama at 69 years old, the oldest member of the main cast. Then, in December 1967, a stroke took away her speech. She couldn't reunite with her castmates for the 1977 reunion film. She watched it instead from a care home for retired performers. Blossom Rock died on January 14th, 1978. Her sister Jeanette had died on that exact same date in the calendar, 13 years earlier. Two sisters born close, who left this world on the same date, just years apart. Nobody ever saw his face on screen. Not once in 17 episodes. Under all that hair was Felix Silla, a circus acrobat from a small village in Italy, standing under 4 feet tall. Producers hired him on site, no audition. "You got the job," they told him. "Report Monday." He'd already toured with Ringling Brothers as a trapeze artist before Hollywood ever called. After Cousin It, he kept working in costume for decades. An Ewok in Return of the Jedi, the robot Twiki in Buck Rogers, always hidden behind something. But off-screen, Felix had built a real life. Married to his wife Sue since 1965, with 2 children, a daughter and a son. In 2020, his son Michael died. He was 45. 1 year later, Felix was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He entered hospice care, and within a day, he was gone too. He was 84. His wife and daughter buried a son and a father within 12 months of each other. In 2002, a man walked away from his entire career to sit beside his mother's hospital bed. That man had once played Pugsley Addams at just 8 years old back in 1964. His name was Ken Weatherwax. After the show ended, kids at school wouldn't let the nickname go. He got kicked out of 6 or 7 schools because of it. At 17, he joined the army just to escape being Pugsley for a while. He spent the following decades working behind the camera instead, as a grip and set builder. Then, in 2002, his mother had a stroke. He quit working completely to care for her. She died that same year, and Ken fell into a deep depression. He found his footing again through his church, becoming an active member for years afterward. On December 7th, 2014, his heart simply stopped. He was 59. His ashes sat with his nephew for 2 years until fans and friends raised the money for him to finally have a proper resting place. The boy who played a monster kid on television spent his real life quietly showing up for the people he loved. You've seen that dance before. Jenna Ortega made it famous again in 2022, but she borrowed it from a 6-year-old girl who taught it to Lurch on live television nearly 60 years earlier. That girl was Lisa Loring. Her childhood wasn't as gentle as Wednesday's. Her mother died of alcoholism in 1974, when Lisa was just 16. She spent years afterward battling addiction of her own. She married 3 times, once to a man who worked in adult films, secretly, behind her back, even after she asked him to stop. That marriage ended in 1992. She kept living. She raised 2 daughters. She found steady work as a makeup artist. She stayed close friends with her old TV brother, Ken Weatherwax, for the rest of both their lives. On January 28th, 2023, a stroke took her at 64. Her daughter said she went peacefully, with both girls holding her hands. The girl who taught America a dance about darkness spent her whole life walking through real darkness of her own, and she never once let it stop her from dancing. One member of this family adopted a little boy in 1973. That boy grew up to carry a ring across Middle-earth as Samwise Gamgee. His adoptive father played Gomez Addams. John Astin was 34 when the show began in 1964. He studied mathematics at Johns Hopkins before theater pulled him away. Decades later, he returned to that same university, this time as a professor, teaching there until he retired in 2021. Every other member of this original cast is gone now. John Astin is still here, 96 years old, living quietly in Baltimore with his wife Valerie. The man who played television's most eccentric father turned out to be the one who outlasted them all. That mansion is still standing in reruns, gates open, gong still ringing for a butler who isn't there to answer anymore. Every family wearing a public face while carrying something heavier behind closed doors. That's not just the Addams way. That's every family, in every house, on every street. The camera always stops rolling before the real story does. What would you ask Morticia if she could still answer?